Internal emissions pulsed with unnatural rhythm. And now, as the James Webb Space Telescope turns its unrelenting gaze toward this ancient traveler, it has returned images that are rewriting the boundaries of what we consider natural. Because hidden beneath the object's surface, deep inside its rotating mass, lies something no scientist was prepared to see. A pattern, not random, not geological, but engineered. A repeating geometry, mathematically precise, echoing shapes we only associate with intelligent design. Grids, angles, walls, corridors, cavities spaced at exact intervals. Webb didn't just find reflections. It found a structure. A structure that resembles the layout of a city. So the question we now face isn't just what is 3I Atlas. The question is who built this and why is it heading straight through our solar system? Let's explore what James Webb has uncovered. At first, 3I Atlas was filed away as a curiosity, the third known interstellar object to enter our system. It followed an odd but traceable path. Slight deviations were noted, but nothing to raise alarms until James Webb was directed to study its surface in infrared. What the telescope found wasn't noise, wasn't randomness, but a recurring geometric alignment hidden beneath the layers of cosmic dust. Using its NIRCam and MIRI instruments, Webb captured heat signatures that traced outlines too regular, too deliberate to be random. Long, narrow corridors, right-angled intersections, enclosed cavities spaced with perfect symmetry. Scientists at first dismissed the readings as sensor anomalies, but as more data came in, it became undeniable. The structure inside 3I Atlas had the proportions and spatial logic of urban planning. This wasn't erosion. This wasn't crystallization. It was layout. Something that had been designed and perhaps even inhabited. If these dimensions were translated into a terrestrial context, we'd be looking at what resembles a city block not just once, but repeated, almost like modules, as if whatever built this structure used a grid-based architecture consistent across internal compartments. The implications were staggering because in nature nothing aligns itself into repeating perfect right angles. But intelligence does. While the shapes alone were cause for alarm, it was the thermal behavior of these internal patterns that truly set off alarms. The core of 3 Atlas emits infrared pulses, but only from specific zones. And those zones align perfectly with the structural grids. This means that the heat isn't radiating naturally. It's being emitted in localized timed bursts, much like heat from infrastructure or even reactors. Webb sensors noted fluctuations consistent with what on Earth we might call controlled temperature regulation. Imagine walking through an abandoned building where some rooms are still warm, not decaying, but active. This behavior, coupled with unusual electromagnetic interference surrounding the object, led engineers to propose something shocking. The internal cavities might not just be hollow. They might be shielded. Some frequencies bounced off them entirely, as if they were lined with a material designed to repel radiation. Other frequencies entered but didn't return. It was as if something inside was absorbing them, storing them, maybe even interpreting them. Suddenly, the notion of a city-like structure wasn't science fiction anymore. It was becoming engineering fact. Because the only reason to create temperature-regulated, signal-blocking, grid-aligned cavities inside a traveling object is if those cavities serve a purpose. And if that purpose was survival, we may not be looking at a rock. We may be looking at a vessel. To fully grasp the anomaly of 3I Atlas's structure, researchers began comparing it to the closest man-made analogues: underground cities, nuclear bunkers, and spacecraft. What they found was disturbing. Not only did the internal layout resemble human structures, but its proportions mirrored some of the most efficient designs ever built for long-term human survival. Some of the chambers were hexagonal, a shape used in aerospace engineering to maximize space and strength. Others followed Fibonacci spacing, a ratio found in both nature and high-efficiency architectural layouts. One physicist from the European Space Agency proposed that the internal design of 3 Atlas could represent a form of environmental compartmentalization, suggesting that the structure was intended to shield life or equipment from the extreme conditions of deep space. What if this wasn't a remnant of a civilization, but a lifeboat? A fragment of something much greater? Maybe a station, maybe a ship, maybe even a colony sent into space not to explore, but to flee. And what does it mean that we've intercepted it now, in our time, in our corner of the cosmos? Is it coincidence? Is it on a fixed trajectory? Or did it detect us long before we ever noticed it? Because if 3 Atlas was meant to carry something or someone across the stars, then its arrival is not just an event. It's a message. For weeks, agencies have argued over what to call the structure inside 3 Atlas. Some say it's non-natural architecture. Others call it a thermal anomaly with geometric resonance. But what no one wants to say publicly, at least not yet, is what it might actually be: evidence of extraterrestrial engineering. The very term still triggers denial in mainstream circles. But every hour that passes, more data comes in, and every new scan reinforces the same idea. This object is not entirely random. Its features were placed, aligned, tuned, and whether it's active or dormant, it is not just passing through our system. It's revealing itself. And as 3 Atlas continues its silent drift, governments are now scrambling to establish observation priorities. Military satellites have turned their eyes toward it. Communication arrays are being recalibrated. Something has shifted in tone behind closed doors, the kind of shift that happens when the unthinkable becomes undeniable. Because if what we're seeing is a structure, a city-like machine frozen in time, then this is no longer a scientific discovery. This is a civilizational event. As the Webb images circulated among international observatories, a curious pattern began to emerge, not from the object, but from the people observing it. Some of the most prominent astrophysicists outright refused to comment. Others offered vague euphemistic statements, calling the structure unexpected, unprecedented, or worse, statistically improbable. Behind those carefully chosen words was fear not of the object itself, but of what accepting it would mean. To admit that we had just captured an image of a city-like architecture inside an interstellar object would be to rip apart centuries of scientific consensus. It would mean that life, intelligent, architectural, technological life, existed not only beyond Earth, but was once mobile, perhaps exploratory, perhaps desperate. And that life might have left behind a relic designed to survive the death of its creators. So instead of facing that monumental reality, the scientific world hesitated. And in that hesitation, the truth slipped further into shadow. Not everyone chose silence. In a move that stunned the global astronomical community, a coalition of US and European defense satellites recalibrated their focus toward 3I Atlas. These weren't standard telescopes. These were thermal imaging, radio frequency tracking, deep space interference monitoring systems, usually reserved for spy satellites or missile defense. Why aim such